A silver metal can drop through black-blue water. At first, it looks ordinary. It turns slowly, catching a thin line of light on its rim. A few bubbles escape from its opening and rise away into the dark. The can sinks lower. The blue fades. The water around it becomes heavier, colder, quieter. Then the metal bends not from one side. Not from a bite, not from an impact. It folds inward from everywhere at once. The walls buckle, the rim twists. The center caves in as if invisible hands have closed around it from all directions. The can becomes smaller, uglier, crushed into a wrinkled piece of silver. Beside it, in the same darkness, a translucent deep-sea animal drifts past unharmed. It looks fragile. Its body is soft. Its fins move slowly. Its tissues are not armored like a submarine. It does not look stronger than the metal. It does not look built to resist a crushing force that could flatten air, filled objects, and break human machines. Yet the can is destroyed. The animal is not. That contradiction is the doorway into one of the strangest truths about the deep ocean. The deep sea does not crush everything. It crushes what cannot match its pressure. As the can falls, the water above it becomes weight. Every meter of ocean adds more water pressing down. But pressure in the sea is not only a downward force. It presses from every side at once, from above, from below, from the left, from the right, into every crack, every opening, every pocket of trapped gas. Near the surface, the pressure is familiar. Our bodies are built for it. A bottle, a lung, a bubble, a cabin full of air can exist there because the difference between inside and outside is manageable. But descend into the deep, and the ocean becomes a physical weight wrapped around everything. About every 10 meters, the pressure increases by roughly 1 atmosphere. That means the deeper an object sinks, the harder the water presses on it. At hundreds of meters, small air spaces begin to shrink. At thousands of meters, the pressure is enormous. In the deepest trenches, it can be more than 1,000 times the pressure at the surface. A metal can is not crushed because metal is weak in some simple way. It is crushed because the pressure outside becomes far greater than the pressure inside. The can contains air, air can compress, water pushes inward, the air pocket inside cannot push back enough. The can's walls collapse around the shrinking space. The real target is not the metal. The real target is the empty space. That is the first key. The deep ocean is most dangerous to things that contain compressible gas. A bubble sinks in a column of dark water. At first, it is round and bright. As it descends, it shrinks. The same amount of gas is being squeezed into a smaller volume. The water presses harder and harder, and the bubble becomes less and less itself. An air-filled bottle does the same thing. A sealed container may deform. A hollow structure may buckle. A human chest without protection would face a terrible mismatch between internal air spaces and external pressure. But many deep-sea animals are not built around large air-filled spaces. They are mostly water, and water is very difficult to compress. Deep-sea fish drifting in the abyss is not holding a big pocket of air that the ocean can easily squeeze. Its tissues are wet. Its fluids are already under pressure. Its body is not trying to keep a low-pressure bubble inside a high-pressure world. Instead, the pressure outside and the pressure inside are much more closely matched. This is why a soft-looking animal can survive where a metal can collapse. Strength is not the main trick. Matching pressure is the trick. A submersible has a different problem. It carries humans, electronics, instruments, lights, and air. Inside the pressure hull, people need something close to normal surface pressure. Outside, the ocean may be pressing with hundreds of atmospheres. The hull has to hold back that difference. It must be rigid, carefully shaped, and engineered, so the water cannot crush the air-filled space within. The animal does not need to do that in the same way. Its body is not a little surface world sealed inside the deep. It is part of the pressure field. Imagine a deep-sea animal as a body full of water, base tissues, fluids, flexible membranes, and internal chemistry that can operate under high pressure. The pressure is not simply attacking the animal from the outside. It is present throughout the animal. Its fluids transmit pressure. Its tissues deform without catastrophic collapse. It is not fighting the sea like a submarine. It is living inside the same pressure. But that does not mean deep. Sea life is simple. The ocean may not crush every soft animal like a can, but pressure still changes biology. Cells are full of delicate machinery. Proteins fold into specific shapes. Membranes must remain flexible enough to let molecules move. Enzymes must still bind, release, and react. Nerves must still signal. Muscles must still contract. Reproduction, digestion, repair, and movement all depend on molecular systems that can be disturbed by pressure. So the deep sea animal faces a second problem. Not collapse of the whole body, collapse of function. The body may remain in one piece, but its chemistry still has to work. In shallow water, cell membranes have a certain balance of stiffness and fluidity. Under high pressure, membranes can become more ordered and less flexible. If the membrane becomes too rigid, transport systems may slow. Communication between parts of the cell may change. The cell may remain intact, but its operations become distorted. Deep-sea organisms often show membrane adaptations that help maintain function under pressure and cold. In many cases, their membrane lipids are adjusted so the membrane stays usable in a high-pressure, low-temperature environment. This does not mean every deep-sea animal uses the same formula. There is no single pressure-proof design, but the principle is clear under pressure. The smallest parts of the body must still remain workable. Now move deeper inside the cell. Proteins are not just chemical objects floating around. They are shaped tools. Their shape matters. A protein that folds correctly can perform a function. A protein that folds badly may fail, clump, or react at the wrong speed. Pressure can affect protein structure and protein behavior. Some deep-sea organisms use small organic molecules that help stabilize proteins under pressure. One of the best-known examples is TMAO, trimethylamine oxide, which is found in many marine animals and is associated with pressure adaptation in deep-living species. But even here, caution matters. TMAO is not a magic shield. It is part of a broader chemical strategy, and its role can vary by organism, depth, and physiology. The deeper we look, the more the answer changes. At first, the question sounds simple. Why don't deep-sea animals get crushed? The first answer is physical. They do not have large airspaces that collapse like a can. The second answer is biological. Their cells, membranes, proteins, and chemistry must be adapted to work under pressure. The third answer is evolutionary. Different deep-sea animals solve different parts of the problem in different ways. A gelatinous animal drifting in the water column faces pressure differently from a crustacean walking near the seafloor. A deep-sea fish faces pressure differently from a microorganism living in trench sediment. A snailfish from the Hadal zone is not built the same as a lanternfish from midwater. A soft-bodied animal is not the same as an animal with a harder exoskeleton. The deep sea is not one habitat. It is a stack of worlds. Pressure is one major force, but it is not alone. Darkness shapes vision and behavior. Cold slows chemistry. Food scarcity changes movement and metabolism. The seafloor may be still in some places and violently chemical in others. Hydrothermal vents create hot, mineral-rich environments very different from the open abyss. Trenches create extreme pressure and isolation. Midwater zones create endless darkness with no solid ground. A deep-sea animal is never adapted only to pressure. It is adapted to pressure plus cold, pressure plus darkness, pressure plus low food, pressure plus distance from the surface, pressure plus the chemistry of its own world. Still, pressure is the invisible force that makes the deep ocean feel unreal. A submersible light sweeps across the seafloor. Particles stream through the beam like dust in a cathedral. A soft animal rises from the sediment. It moves slowly, almost weightless, while the machine beside it is wrapped in engineering. The submersible needs a pressure hull. It needs seals. It needs thick windows or camera housings. It needs to protect empty spaces from the outside sea. The animal simply exists there. But if we bring that animal upward too quickly, the story changes. It needs thick windows. Some deep-sea animals are damaged not by going down, but by coming up at depth. Their bodies are in balance with high pressure. Their tissues, gases if present in small specialized structures, membranes, and chemistry are operating under those conditions. When they are pulled toward the surface, pressure drops. The balance changes. Gas can expand, tissues may distort, cells and membranes may be stressed. Organs adapted to the deep may not work correctly in shallow conditions. This is why many deep-sea animals look very different when recovered at the surface. Some arrive damaged, bloated, ruptured, or distorted. Images of strange deep-sea fish on decks or in buckets can be misleading. The animal seen at the surface may not represent the living animal in its normal world. It may be a pressure-damaged version of itself. That is another reversal. We often imagine the deep as the dangerous place for deep-sea life. The surface can be the dangerous place. Deep-sea fish floating calmly at depth is not a monster defying pressure through brute force. It is an organism living in the pressure it was built for. Pull it into our world, and the mismatch begins. The abyss is normal for the abyss. The surface is not. It carries a surface problem: trapped air. Its structure is rigid enough to hold shape at the surface, but not engineered to resist huge pressure differences at depth. The ocean presses inward. The air compresses. The walls buckle. The can fails. A human submersible is also a surface object taken into a deep world, but it is built to resist that pressure difference. Its hull must be shaped and strengthened so the outside water cannot force it inward. It is not enough for it to be thick. Shape matters. Materials matter. Tiny flaws matter. Repeated stress matters. Windows, seals, joints, and penetrations all matter. The deeper it goes, the more every weakness matters. The deep-sea animal has a different strategy. It does not preserve a large bubble of surface pressure. Its body accepts the pressure. This is why the comparison between a crushed can and a drifting animal is so powerful. They are in the same water, but not facing the same internal problem. One contains a compressible space that collapses. The other is mostly fluid and flexible, with internal conditions that match the surrounding world far better. But there are exceptions and complications. Some fish use swim bladders to control buoyancy. A swim bladder is a gas-filled organ, and gas-filled organs can be a pressure problem. Many deep-sea fish have reduced, absent, or specially adapted buoyancy systems. Some rely more on oils, watery tissues, reduced bone density, or other ways of managing buoyancy without maintaining a large, dangerous gas volume. But not all deep-sea fish are the same, and depth matters. Some have gas spaces adapted for their particular pressure range. Others avoid them. The main principle remains: large, ordinary airspaces are dangerous under pressure. This is why the human body is not like a deep-sea fish body. Humans have air-filled lungs, sinuses, and middle ears. Divers must manage pressure carefully because gas spaces compress and expand. At shallow diving depths, this is already important. In the deep ocean, without protection, the mismatch would be far beyond what the human body can manage. A human needs a pressure environment, breathing gas, life support, and controlled conditions. Deep-sea animals are not secretly stronger humans. They are built around different assumptions. Their world presses on them all the time. A deep-sea crustacean walks across the seafloor. Its shell is not holding back a cabin of air. Pressure passes through its water-rich body. Its tissues operate in that pressure. Its joints move slowly. Its enzymes function within a narrow, cold, pressurized range. Its life is not a battle against the sea. It is a negotiation with it. A soft fish hovers near a dark slope. Its bones may be lighter than those of many shallow water fish. Its tissues may be watery. Its movement may be slow. It does not need to be armored against crushing in the way a person might imagine. It needs to keep its cells alive, its membranes usable, its proteins functioning, and its internal pressure balanced. A gelatinous animal drifts like a transparent ribbon. It looks impossible, but a body made mostly of water has no large empty structure for pressure to destroy. The shape may deform, but the body is not trying to preserve a rigid air-filled cavity. The animal is fragile in many ways, but not vulnerable to deep pressure in the same way as a hollow object. The deep sea teaches a strange lesson about strength. Sometimes survival is not about resisting force. Sometimes survival is about not creating a difference the force can exploit. A can is crushed because the outside and inside are different. A submersible survives because its hull is engineered to maintain that difference. A deep-sea animal survives because much of its body does not create that difference in the first place. This does not make the animal invincible. It can be injured, eaten, starved, poisoned, overheated near vents, trapped in low oxygen or damaged by pressure change. But it is not automatically crushed by the pressure around it because its body is not built like a sealed air pocket. Look at pressure arrows closing around an object in the abyss. If the object contains air, the arrows point toward collapse. If the object is filled with water or fluid at the same pressure, there is no simple empty space to crush. The force is still there, but it is distributed. It is transmitted. It becomes part of the internal condition. That is why pressure from all directions matters. If pressure came only from above, animals might need to resist a top-down weight, but hydrostatic pressure surrounds them. It squeezes from every direction equally at the same depth. This equal pressure is why a fluid-filled body does not flatten like a pancake. The force is balanced around it and throughout it. Problem appears when there is a compressible pocket, a rigid sealed cavity, or a pressure difference. An air bubble shrinks, a can folds, a poorly protected housing fails. A human-made structure implodes. But a deep-sea animal's body is not empty inside in that way. Now imagine a camera moving into the body at the cellular level. The whole organism looks calm, but inside the cells, pressure is shaping the rules. Membranes must maintain the right fluidity. Proteins must fold and function. Enzymes must run reactions at useful speeds despite cold and pressure. Genetic expression may be tuned to produce molecules suited for deep conditions. Some organisms have pressure-adapted versions of proteins. Some use stabilizing compounds. Some alter membrane composition. This is not cinematic in the obvious way, but it is the hidden action. The can crushes in 1 second. The cell survives every second. A deep-sea animal is not only a shape, it is a living chemistry experiment that has been tuned by evolution under high pressure. Every generation that failed to keep proteins stable, membranes workable, or buoyancy safe disappeared. Every lineage that found a workable combination continued. That is why there is no single answer for all deep-sea animals. A deep-sea jelly, like animal and a hadal snailfish, may both avoid being crushed, but their details differ. A microbe near a trench floor and a fish in midwater differ even more. A deep-sea animal living at one depth may not survive at another. Adaptation has limits. Pressure specialists can be trapped within pressure ranges, just as shallow water animals are trapped within theirs. The deep sea is not simply a place where creatures are tough. It is a place where each creature fits a narrow physical reality. The deeper the animal lives, the more intense the conditions become. But going deeper is not automatically better or more advanced. It is just different. At great depth, pressure is high, food may be limited, temperature is low except near special heat sources, and energy can be scarce. Animals there often live slowly, conserve energy, and exploit rare resources. Their bodies are not heroic machines, they are compromises. This is why the phrase crushed by pressure can mislead us. It makes pressure sound like a hammer. But pressure is more like an environment. It is everywhere. It is constant. It is invisible. It changes what kinds of bodies can exist. It punishes air spaces. It alters chemistry. It makes human exploration difficult. It shapes the design of every animal that lives there. When we lower instruments into the abyss, we are reminded of this immediately. Lights must be housed. Cameras must be sealed. Batteries must be protected. Glass spheres must be rated. Metal frames must endure. Foam compresses. Air-filled materials deform. A small flaw can become catastrophic. The machine has to survive as an outsider. Deep sea animals are insiders. They did not enter the abyss for an expedition. They are the abyss, organized into flesh. A translucent animal floats past the submersible light. Its body flexes gently. Particles flow around it. It is not resisting the sea as an enemy. Its tissues are in equilibrium with the water. Its life depends on not being separated from the conditions that made it possible. If it could understand the submersible, the machine might seem stranger than the animal. A hard shell carrying a bubble of alien pressure. A bright moving object full of surface air. A fragile interior protected by engineering because the creatures inside cannot become part of the deep. To us, the deep-sea fish looks impossible. To the fish, the submarine is the impossible thing. The deeper the camera moves, the more the ocean becomes less like empty water and more like a massive physical presence. There is no sunlight. There are only beams, particles, drifting bodies, and pressure. The seafloor appears slowly, not as a landscape, but as a place under weight. Every animal there is shaped by the fact that the water is not just around it. The water is pressing through the logic of its life. Akin falls again in the dark. This time we understand what we are seeing. The metal wrinkles because the air inside cannot keep up. The collapse is the visible failure of a surface object in a pressure world. Next to it, a soft animal passes. It survives, not because it is harder than metal, it survives because it is not built around the same weakness. Its body is wet, flexible, pressure, matched, chemically adapted, and evolved for a world where empty space is dangerous. Its cells continue their work, its membranes hold their useful state, its proteins function. Its organs are not trying to protect a pocket of surface air. The animal is not stronger. It is different. The ocean is not simply crushing. It is selecting against trapped air, selecting against rigid, unprotected hollows, selecting against chemistry that fails under pressure, selecting against bodies that cannot return pressure. With pressure, the deep sea is not gentle. It is cold, dark, hungry, and physically heavy. But it is not a universal crushing machine. It is a world with rules. Follow those rules and a body can drift in a darkness that destroys metal cans. Break those rules and even a strong object can fold like paper. The final image is almost silent. A crumpled silver can rests on the abyssal floor, twisted inward around the air it could not protect. Above it, a translucent animal moves through the black water, its body glowing faintly in the beam of a distant submersible. The same pressure surrounds them both. Zone became a warning. The other became life.